He didn't know that this morning would decide everything. The alarm went off at 5:12 a.m., the same cracked phone screen lighting up the same dark room he'd been waking up in for years. He lay still for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling of the rented apartment, listening to the quiet breathing of his kids in the next room. This was the moment he always hated, the moment before getting up, because once his feet touched the floor, the math would start again. Rent, groceries, gas, the numbers never added up, no matter how early he woke up or how late he came home. He worked full-time, sometimes more than full-time, the kind of job where you're always replaceable, where missing one day feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. He put on his work boots, careful not to make noise, and checked his bank app without really wanting to. The balance confirmed what he already knew. He closed the app quickly, like looking away could change it. On the drive to work, he passed houses he knew he'd never own. Lawns trimmed perfectly, cars that cost more than his yearly rent. He didn't hate those people. He just wondered how they did it. What choice they made that he didn't. Or what mistake he made that kept repeating itself every month. At work, everything felt normal. Too normal. The same routine, the same tasks, the same jokes from coworkers who were all pretending things were fine. Around mid-morning, his supervisor called him aside. Not angry, not smiling either, just neutral. That kind of neutral that makes your stomach tighten before anything is even said. They told him hours might be cut. Maybe temporary, maybe not. Business was slowing down, nothing personal. They said it the way people say things when they don't have to live with the consequences. He nodded, said he understood, thanked them for the heads up. That's what you do when you can't afford to argue. Back at his station, his hands moved automatically, but his mind wasn't there anymore. Hours cut meant choices, and he was already out of choices. He thought about the rent notice taped to the fridge at home. About his kid asking last night why they couldn't move to a bigger place like his friends. About how he'd smiled and changed the subject. During lunch, he didn't eat. He sat in his car instead, scrolling through job listings that all promised flexibility and opportunity and delivered the same low pay in different words. That's when his phone buzzed. A message from his landlord. Short, polite, firm. Rent was late. Again. He stared at the message longer than he should have. Then something strange happened. Instead of panic, a quiet clarity settled in. Not hope, not anger, just a realization that whatever he'd been doing wasn't working anymore. After work, he didn't drive straight home. He sat in the parking lot with the engine off, watching people leave. Some laughing, some tired like him, all carrying something invisible. He thought about how many Americans were doing exactly what he was doing, working, trying, still falling behind. He remembered reading somewhere that owning a home used to be normal, not a dream. That stability used to be expected, not earned like a lottery prize. When he finally got home, his kids ran to him like they always did. That part of his life still worked. Dinner was simple, conversation was light, but inside, he was somewhere else. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, he sat at the small kitchen table and opened his notebook. He didn't usually write things down. But this time, he needed to see it. He wrote the numbers, income, expenses, cuts. What would happen if nothing changed? Then he wrote a different question underneath. What happens if I stop pretending this is sustainable? The next day, he did something small but terrifying. He spoke up, not loudly, not dramatically. He asked questions at work he'd never asked before. He started talking to coworkers about things they all avoided: pay, hours, security. He didn't know where it would lead. He only knew that silence had led him here. Weeks passed. Nothing magically improved. Some days were worse, but something had shifted. He applied for training he'd been putting off because it felt risky. He asked for help where pride used to stop him. He stopped blaming himself for problems that were bigger than one man trying to survive. One evening, months later, he sat in the same apartment, same table, same notebook. The numbers weren't perfect. He still rented. He still worked hard. But he wasn't invisible to himself anymore. He understood now that millions of people were living this story, quietly, without headlines or sympathy. And the real question was no longer whether he worked hard enough. It was what happened to a system where doing everything right still wasn't enough.